Not an original answer, but it's fame and fortune, just like we all want to a degree. And I got my start the probably the oldest possible way, which is through nepotism. But I was very fortunate to have a cousin who worked in production at Fox, and so she was able to help me get a post-PA job on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah, it was cool. But what she told me, after I got hired on the job, what she told me is that I helped you get your foot in the door, but that's it. From now on, it's up to you to make it happen. And she was right.
Unlike Tamara, I am a transplant from Boston, didn't know anyone in the business, but was lucky enough to go to USC. I don't know if there are any Trojans in the house. Right on. I actually studied music business, which I like to call my BS and BS, because that really didn't get me anywhere, other than into one of the endowed chairs of the cinema school, and he told me, look, if you want to be in entertainment, start in an agency. It's a good 360-degree view of the business, but if you ever want to make any money, go work in television. So I took his advice, but the money side will come eventually.
I guess I just started saying yes to anything. Whether that was PAing or being somebody's assistant or anybody who I knew was in proximity to what I wanted to do. I was just like, okay, I will pick up your laundry if I have to, and I will take your kids to school. I don't care what it is. And that was the start of my path, I guess.
I am also a Boston transplant, but I went to Emerson College, and it was actually that network that really hooked me up with my first internship out here at DreamWorks Animation, which is where I started, and I was there for about 7 years. So that alongside with, I got some advice starting early on, which was to sort of look around me at my age group, at the people that I sort of came out here to LA with, and find the upcoming directors that I like and the upcoming writers that I like, and help them produce their content. So that's really, really where I earned my producing chops, was on the weekends for no money, making short films, making music videos, making web series pilots, just to sort of learn how to do it and make all of my mistakes on the smaller stage before sort of getting to the big stage. So that's how I sort of got to where I am now.
I am also a transplant, but from Northern California and from a completely different industry. As was mentioned, I worked in the computer game industry for a whole other career for 10 years. And for Microsoft, Electronic Arts, various startups in Silicon Valley, and I was working for Yahoo, and that moved me down here. So it's a nice soft landing in LA when your company moves you down here. But this was my opportunity to really go to events like this. I went to things like this as often as I could. I was writing TV specs on the side, and I applied and got into the Warner Brothers Drama Writers Workshop. That's a great program. I highly recommend everyone apply. It's usually in the springtime that the application period is. You probably know that. But that's one of a handful of really great programs from the industry that various studios and networks have that are a great way to bring new voices into the industry. And for me, it was someone coming in from a completely different other industry. So I got staffed onto my first TV show out of that program, and gave Yahoo 2 weeks notice, and that's what I've been focusing on ever since.
That's pretty awesome. So you never know where your life takes you and where you're going to land. And I feel like each of you have been through that journey. And now, Kira, since you've touched upon the program that you were at, it was a Writers Guild program as well as Warner Bros.
Yeah, so this one was the Warner Brothers Drama Writers Workshop. Many of the studios and networks have those, and those are basically designed for writers, emerging writers, at the early part of your careers. Some of them are specifically inclusive and equity programs where we're trying to get diverse voices in. Not all of them are, but they're all worth applying for. They're very competitive, but they are, along with the assistant track, along with making your own content, it's a really good way to kind of get in. When I was first thinking about getting into this business, I had lunch with a person who was working on Grey's Anatomy, and they said, people just want someone to have said yes to you, and that can be a competition, that can be like a reputable competition. It could be one of these programs, it could be having your work out there. Now more than ever, it's even easier to make that yes for yourself, but everyone wants to see that you've kind of made some progress on your own, and then they kind of want to pick you up and kind of run, then they run with you.
So I really kind of wanted to check on each and every one of you if you have done any programs like these. If not, certainly find like whatever has really led you to learn to come into your position, because there's so much out there, right? Like we sometimes just don't know what to tap into. So what have you come across that's been very helpful for you and very effective for anybody trying to step into a writer-producer role?
Sure. I'm not the benefit of any particular programs from like what you're referring to, but to sort of go off of what you were saying, I think you guys are all taking great steps because you're here now and listening to people talk about their experience, and that's so much of what I did in my early years, getting involved in organizations like Women in Film. There's also Women in Animation, and things sort of that nature that you can just go listen to people talk about their experience, and if there's some sort of thing you can draft off of and say like, oh, that's a really good tip, I never thought about that, I'm going to apply that to this sort of part of my career, I think is really important. But it's clear to me that you guys already know all that already because you're here, so.
I went to film school, which everybody's like, don't do that, just pay for a movie. But like, honestly, film school gave me the confidence to see like, okay, these are the other people my age that are doing the things that I want to do. My stuff maybe makes a difference, or maybe it's more honest, or whatever it is. And it was just, whatever you do along the way is just a step towards being more confident in yourself. And whether you get that through a program, or whether you're getting that through somebody who hires you, or film school, or whatever it is, it's just take whatever step you need to do to believe in your own art.
I completely agree. I mean, starting at ICM, I came up through the training program, which, you had to interview for, go through like all these panel interviews and Q&As, but what I learned is, the people in your group kind of become your brothers in arms, and they become your tribe as you leave, ICM and beyond, or any agency that you work at. You form your network, and I can't tell you how many people I've come back around to for future job opportunities, or who have come to me to ask me to recommend them someone because they're hiring a director to direct the finale episode or whatever. It's sort of a really nice way to find your people, and you kind of progress through the industry with who you like, and you leave behind people that you don't. But what I really found is that this community is super supportive, and if you need someone to look to, it's not that hard to find.
So the second part to the nepotism story is that I then proceeded to struggle for 10 years to try and become a writer, and it wasn't until, and it's really fucking hard, and all of you, I think everybody knows that, and I ultimately was fortunate enough to get into the NBC Writers on the Verge program, and it was after applying to these programs year after year, and I just kept applying and applying. And what was really helpful to me was I was working on, I think, some show where the writer's assistant was also applying, and so we sort of encouraged each other. And so, like these guys were saying, that it is so important just to find one other person or a few other people to have community with, to find people here to talk to, and just encourage each other, even in these small ways, just to apply to competitions. Because for me, through that competition, through being in that program, I was able to get an agent, sort of hip-pocketing agent, and also that's where I met Tom Lieber, who's an executive at Marvel, and he gave me my first job and sort of hung on to me like a little pet, and keeps hiring me for things. So it is really important to, when you find these people in your community, that to hang on to them for dear life.
I think it seems like a lot of perseverance. You have to be very open, receptive, constant as well. Were there any moments that you found yourself doubting or struggling, and how did you pull yourselves up? Because in Hollywood, it is a constant battle, constantly, whether you are already on your horse or not. So how do you still keep on going and persevering? And there's a lot of changes within the industry, what goes on with VOD platforms right now, and diversity discussions, and female empowerment, like yourselves, women in entertainment. So how do you handle some of these sort of more like battle-ish moments to overcome them as a writer or a producer, like when you're trying to create some form of a narrative?
I think just by nature as a writer, we tend to beat ourselves up a lot. And I've just sort of incorporated that as part of my process now, and that sort of embrace the beating myself up. And no, I think literally every time I start something new and I'm staring at the blank page, I at a certain point throw myself on the ground, metaphorically, and say, that's it. I guess I only had two in me. I only had 2 pilots in me, and that's it. I can't do it. But then once I sort of get that garbage out of my head, it sort of, in a way, allows me to move past it. So I guess embrace the temper tantrum, in a sense.
I like that. I was telling someone before this panel started that something really wise that a college professor told me was, look at your career as like a marathon. It's not a sprint. Everybody runs their race at their own pace. As an executive, we have the tendency to compare ourselves to other people who will continue to, what we like to call, fail upwards, or people actually deservedly grow just faster than you do. But I was an assistant for a really effing long time, and as I was approaching my 6th year on a very promotable desk, I was starting to bang my head against the wall, and I was up for a promotion, but I had to, what I like to say, audition in an American Idol style fashion against a lot of people, both internally and externally. And I sought out a meditative therapist in true Hollywood fashion, who told me, like, look, just focus on yourself. If not this, then something better. And I sort of took that as my mantra going forward into anything that I do. I think you have to just focus on yourself, because you're accountable only for yourself, and just stay true to what you believe in, and good things will happen.
Do I doubt myself like every single day? And I'm always like, why am I trying to do this like really privileged job that like just is like for assholes? But I don't know, I've tried to do all the other mundane things, and that's really a lot worse. So it kind of seems like the fight is just continuing to do what you think it is that you see in your mind that you can't really explain, but you know that it's this thing that drives you, that picks you up, that makes you feel excited about this fucked up world. And you just keep doing it.
I went to go see Michelle Obama speak last night down in England, and she, I didn't go to class for that, and she actually was talking, it was like the most sort of like true glimmer of like who she really is. She was talking about how over the weekend she had a nervous breakdown because she's about to launch her book and start this major book tour, and she was like, I had imposter syndrome. I was like, who am I for all of these massive crowds of people to come and sit and listen to me speak? Like, I don't have anything to say. I don't know why I'm releasing a book. I don't understand all the fuss. And like, that was a very clarifying moment for me just in the last 24 hours. I'm like, if Michelle Obama feels like she doesn't have anything to say sometimes and has those moments of doubt, like, clearly, and this is something like I feel like I constantly have to remind myself in my career, whatever feeling of doubt or imposter syndrome that I'm having, every single person in the room with me is having it too. It's like rocking up to a panel like this, and like, why am I here? Like, look at all these talented ladies. Like, I don't know why I belong here, but there's some comfort in knowing that you are not the only person that's feeling that way. Everyone around you is feeling that way. Every meeting, every pitch room, executives, directors, writers, doesn't really matter. Everyone always has those moments of like, I don't know how I got here, and I guess I know what I'm talking about, but maybe not all of the time, so I just take solace in that sort of feeling.
That's such a great point. I was starting to watch the Spielberg documentary, the HBO film, and that's where the thing starts with him saying, like, I didn't know what I was doing, I still don't know what I'm doing, which is like, okay, well, if Steven Spielberg can have that feeling, then we're all good. Yeah, so my first staff job came out of this program. That was the year of the writer's strike, and we got canceled when my episode was in post-production. I was in the editing bay, and we read it on Variety, which is not a good way to find out that your show's been canceled. And it happened at a kind of a bad time of year, staffing season for networks. Things are very different now. This is about 10 years ago, 2008. I had missed staffing season, so I did not have a prayer of getting a job on another network show. And so there I was unemployed, my show was canceled, and I'm like, do I go back to Yahoo? Do I call my boss up and say, oh, just kidding, I'm coming back? Or do I really dig in and trust in myself? So I was fiscally responsible, which you also want to do when you're starting out. Lived off my savings, and I wrote a spec feature, which led to meetings, which led to a manager. And I just kind of dug in and focused on my material. And that's, as writers, that's one thing we have control over. There's so much you don't have control over. You lose jobs out to people, to friends. You lose jobs out to people who don't deserve the jobs. Things get canceled. I was in the lobby, or for Warner Brothers actually, for a pitch, and learned that the company I was pitching with actually went out of business right before the pitch. Did not sell the pitch. I'm not sure would have done it anyway. Bad things happen. We have control over so little, but you have control over your writing. You can write your way out of any bad situation you're in, and sometimes that's all you have. The other thing you have is, and one thing Liz had mentioned is, you have your colleagues, your cohort. So joining a writing group, going and meeting friends at a place, in a thing like this, taking a writing class, staying in touch. Those folks, you kind of will rise at the same level, and you'll support yourself, because it's a hard industry, and having that resilience and that support network and faith in your own craft, that's sort of what got me through.
Each of you have had some really empowering words of wisdom. I feel like everybody kind of knows where you're coming from, like we all do feel the same. So I want to get more into sort of more content things, like you mentioned in the writers' room. There's a lot of talk about diversity, and now female voices arising as well. Has there been some form of a shift within these writers' rooms and also within production? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Give us a little bit of an insight.
Yeah, I personally have been very fortunate. My experience has not been common. In the 10 years I've been writing, I was on one show where I was the only woman in the room, and that's, being the only one at any given thing in a room is super awkward, because you're speaking for your entire gender, or your entire race, or your entire religion. That's a hard position to put that person in. But in that case, I had an amazing boss. I've had a bunch of amazing bosses, and most of the rooms I've been working in have been at least half women, and that makes a massive difference just in terms of the kind of voices that you bring in. I will say, though, that in those 10 years I've had female bosses only on 2 seasons total out of all those years. That does need to change, and that is changing. There are a lot more women and people of color coming up and moving into positions of authority, because the showrunners are the ones who basically cast and hire the room, what the room looks like, and actually behind the scenes, below the line, actors. That inclusion increases when you have more people making those decisions. So it is a shift. I've been pretty fortunate. I haven't had some of the horrible experiences some people have. But I certainly have heard them, and hopefully things are changing, but it is very much a state of where we have a lot of work left to do.
Yeah, I agree that things are changing and that we have a lot of work left to do. I'm not in television, so I can't speak as much to the room, but I am in my first sort of year as a corporate shill studio executive, and I can tell you candidly, just through my observation, there are significantly more conversations in the rooms that I'm in now, even more so than 8 months ago, talking about how to get more diverse voices. It's particularly hard in animation because these movies are so infrequently greenlit, and they take so long to make, and they are such huge budgets, so you have to sort of be proven, but it's hard to be proven until you get that first opportunity. So that's like a lot of what a lot of the leadership, at least at Warner Brothers, is sort of grappling with, to try to make sure that we're giving opportunities to diverse voices, but also giving making sure that, you know, they have to also think about their investment and making sure their $110, $120, $150 million animated movie is in the hands of someone who can deliver it over the course of a 3 or 4 year period. So I definitely think it's changing. I think fortunately people are talking about it more, which is helpful, and I just think we have to keep talking about it and keep getting our foot in the door as often as possible.
I was kind of lucky and in a weird situation where I don't think my normal was anybody else's normal in terms of like working on Transparent or trying to integrate ideas into the mass public that weren't necessarily being dealt with before. It was very top of mind, very conscious for us to make our room extremely diverse. Everybody we hired, every department had someone who identified as trans or non-binary or queer or whatever it was. It was like anybody who struggled and fought to get into this like current idea of what is now, we hired them. That was a big part of our practice. That was a big part of my job, was finding people who wanted to do that. I would like to believe and think that other people are making as much effort to do such things. I know people in my proximity are, and I do think, to echo what they're saying, is that it is more of a thing now to be like, oh, well, we have to be aware now, and we care about these things now, so we're going to bring these people in. So that's happening now, which is very exciting. But you know, it's very much an uphill battle.
You know, like my fellow ladies on this panel, I was fortunate enough to, in my time at ABC and Universal Cable Productions, to work under really strong and outspoken women who weren't afraid to make bold choices. In my current position at Marvel, you know, I have, you know, colleagues that are of the same ilk that are super inspiring. I think the reason why shows like Vita on Stars and Transparent are so successful and have so much resonance with the audience is because the people that they staff understand what they're writing about. You know, we're hiring people that have authentically lived those experiences that you see in story, and I think it's my responsibility and my colleagues' responsibility to continue to promote that authenticity by hiring the right people for the job, not because they have flashy credits. So we've been lucky enough to work with awesome writers like Tamara, who write the shit out of our women in really, really inspiring ways. One of my favorite episodes of this past season of Daredevil, if you haven't seen it, it's the Karen episode, episode 10, written by Tamara. And it wouldn't have been as great as it was if we didn't have people like Tamara on our staff.
Thank you. You know, I've had some fantastic experiences and I've had some less ideal experiences in terms of dealing with the Me Too movement nowadays. And it's interesting. I think people are aware that things need to change, but there's still a resistance to it in a sense. And that there are still people out there who feel that the Me Too movement is sort of censoring their creative freedom. And so I've been in rooms where when someone talks about the Bechdel test, that sort of has become an epithet. And the showrunner saying things like, I'm sorry if that's not gonna pass the Bechdel test. And sort of not understanding that when you say these things, it's creating a hostile environment for everyone in there. And maybe they think that it's funny, but and what I've learned is 10 years ago, I've been in several rooms where I was the only woman in it. And so, like you were saying, you know, you feel like you have to speak for all the women. But the way that I felt was because I need to fit in with these guys. So when they say something that is sort of offensive, I feel like I need to laugh harder than everybody else because I need to fit in with the guys. But now I realize that especially in the wake of the Me Too movement, I feel a responsibility to portray women in an honest way that I didn't necessarily feel 10 years ago. And I feel like it's important for everyone in this room when you're working on staffs to speak up, because not everybody knows making a Bechdel joke is offensive, and that's part of how you can help other artists, is to just share from your own experience and your own, because if you don't, then none of us will know. And I also want to point out something that I was looking at before we started tonight, was that I think there was a study done in 2017 that says that like 90% of the showrunners are white and 80% of them are male. And so it's a ship that's turning, but it's turning very slowly. And so I encourage everyone, every person of color, every woman, write. Get your shows on the air. So otherwise...
That's exactly, I agree with you. I feel like it's like quicksand. It's just slowly trickling through. And being here all together, we come from all walks of life, and listening to you, what you are sharing through your journey and your advice, that really makes you think and creates a discussion as well. Like, we have to build bridges in order to understand each other. And so I don't want to be selfish and ask more questions. I want to leave some room, some space for the audience to ask questions to our lovely speakers. Would you like to go first?
Okay, hello girls. I'm from Italy. I work in the film industry. My question is, if it was harder as women to achieve success, if you found more difficulties respect men?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about sort of how the environment that you've come up in is sort of bred. I mean, when I was working at an agency, I saw my male colleagues get ahead of me before I did, because I think as women, oftentimes we're conditioned to behave in a, can I ask permission before I do something, versus guys who are kind of come up in the industry in a way where they're okay to make bold choices and they're not going to fail. I think now we're starting to see a shift in that paradigm where women are becoming fearless and not asking permission to do things. And I think the faster us as a gender, or just us as a society, accepts the fact that we're all equal and we can do things on our own terms when we want to, we'll, all be on the same playing field.
I'll echo what Tamara said. It was kind of like, yeah, I'm in the boys club, like, I can be one of the boys, like, and that helped me 8 years ago get ahead of that. But now, that's not right now. Like, we're in a very unique moment right now where female voices, people of color, everybody is like, there's an awareness that needs to shift. So, sure, 6 years ago, much harder. Right now, don't let it stop you from doing what you want to do. Just, do your thing.
I just want to add one point, which is self-advocacy. I have found to be the hardest part of my career. I will fight for everybody else to get the money that I think they deserve, but it's very hard for me to stand in the room and fight for the money that I deserve. And that has been a big learning curve over the last, 10, 11 years that I've been out here working. And so if I could give any piece of advice to my 21-year-old self just starting out, which is don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. Because the people that will make the space for you to have that are the people that are worth being around yourself. So really just, it's not all about money, but that has just been the most tangible way for me that I have found, maybe all of that, the most tangible way for me that I have found, at least in my own personality, but also in the constructs of being a woman in this industry, has affected me the most profoundly.
And then just jumping off of that, the same goes for your own creative voice. Sometimes this is true of any indie writer. You're thinking, well, what should I be writing? What does the market want? What does someone want me to write? When someone looks at me, what do they think I'm going to be writing? You got to be true to what you want to write. So, a lot of times early on, it's like, oh, so you're a woman, you write, relationship stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I like video games. I like sci-fi. I like action. I write very muscular stuff. And and so those were what my samples were, and I look like this, and I walk into these meetings, and like, wait, you worked in the video game industry for 10 years? And I'm like, yeah. You know, so you got to own what you want to do creatively and be true to your voice. And if it is the small relationship drama, great, own it. If it's something bigger that doesn't seem to fit what you might look like, own it.
Hello there, thank you very much. I've learned so much from you guys. I'm a new writer. I've written a TV series about the 1% and how they control the world. And the funding's come easy because I raised venture capital funds as well. But what's your advice with regards to the chicken and the egg? You know, you have the finance, but then you need to get the attachments. There's this ongoing battle that's been going on for decades. The chicken or the egg with the chicken. It's such a nightmare I'm dealing with. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean in terms of like attaching talent versus having money? Like, which is the chicken and which is the egg?
Well, the money's there, but I guess you either need the letters of intent or some form of a non-binding letter, but if you don't have that, do you have any other bit of advice on how to go about shifting it around?
For me personally, just because I haven't been holding my phone right now, so the other half of my career outside of animation is indie film, and every single project that I've worked on has come together in a different way. There is no prescription for like, once you get this, then you get this, and this, and this, and then you make your movie. Like, it doesn't happen that way. So it's hard to give sort of specific advice to you other than you have to keep persevering. It's so easy. Like, I've had this script that I love so much that I have been attached to for 3 years, and we keep getting so close, and then it falls apart for some reason. And I guarantee you, everybody has stories exactly like that, because that's just sort of the nature of the business. If you believe in it wholeheartedly and you are passionate about it and you know that it needs to get made, like, keep working and keep talking to people about it to find the person that believes in it enough to really help you sort of like get it done.
If you have the resources, make a pilot. Even if it's with a bunch of nobodies. Even if it's like made for $20,000, doesn't matter. Create the vision of what you see, and then that will help somebody see it and be like, okay, there's something here. Let's give this more money to be something, whatever it is. Just make stuff. Yeah. All you have to do is make stuff.
One more, and then we're going to have another 5-10 minute break where you'll be able to chat to all of these speakers. Sorry to cut the Q&A short. We're like,
hi, my name is Sejal. I'm an actress right out of school at NYU, and I'm kind of in that phase that you were each talking about individually about moving or coming out of school and moving here. And I wonder, were there concrete things or steps that you took to make the transition from your school projects and short films and making content, but then actually getting it seen by the people who need to see it, or getting in the room and creating relationships with people that could actually elevate it to the next level?
I'll repeat what I said. It's just kind of saying yes to anything or anyone that finds you that you feel like, okay, this is a person who gets me, or this is a person who wants to do the same things in this world that I want to do. And then whether that's like working with them on like the lowest level or the highest level or whatever it is, it's just like, okay, we get each other. That helps you get closer to those rooms or whatever it is that you're trying to get to. You'll find your people the more you start saying yes.
I'm just a former failed child actor, but for the legitimate actor friends I have that have, this is the after show. For legitimate actors that are working in this business who have, like yourself, graduated from NYU, what was really helpful for them is taking classes at UCB or Groundlings, forming your network that way, and then kind of finding your troupe and shooting things on spec, and you never know who's gonna see you when you perform or see your finished product online or however, which way you end up distributing it. It's a really great way to meet people and also sharpen your voice and your perspective and build some cool skills along the way.
This isn't really concrete, but it's something that I did that I thought was very helpful for me mentally, which was I didn't give myself a timeline. I said to myself, it might take 2 years, it might take 20 years, but I am not leaving. I'm going to do this however long it takes, and I will work at a car wash, I will do whatever it takes, but I will keep doing, because I was reading scripts, and I'm like, if these dum-dums can get their scripts into DreamWorks, I can too.
Okay, sorry we have to cut the Q&A short, but we're going to have a 10-minute break. You will have time to speak to our lovely